Absolute Batman is no stranger to fighting monsters. I mean, have you seen Absolute Joker? But in Absolute Batman Annual 1, the monsters aren't zombie snowmen or 15 feet tall mountains of muscle. They're normal men in masks attacking a migrant encampment out by Slaughter Swamp. It's brutal, political, and for some reason controversial. Even before the comic's release, writer and artist Daniel Warren Johnson faced both heat and praise for a drawing of Absolute Batman choking out an ICE agent. Predictably, some online commentators decried Batman attacking law enforcement, while ignoring ICE's transformation into an institution weaponized against anyone who doesn't fit a certain idea of America, regardless of their immigration status. And because discourse on the internet is allergic to nuance, artist Sergio Cariello fired back with an image of Batman apprehending anti-fascist protesters. This version of the character couldn't be further from the truth though. Superheroes have always stood for the powerless, the people who the system fails to protect, the working classes, ethnic minorities, women. And this arguably applies to Absolute Batman more than any other version of the character. He is a working class civil engineer, battling against the elites, the people who've taken control of Gotham and ruin everyday people's lives to line their own pockets. These elites control the police department, so you can see why Batman might come into conflict with them. But in Johnson's story, the cops that Batman takes down aren't on the take. They are willing participants. They don't show up to protect the migrants, they don't turn a blind eye for a few grand. No, they join in with the violence. White nationalism gets dressed up as pride, but in reality it is based on fear. Fear that equality means loss. Fear that if everyone gets a fair chance, they might not come out on top. Fear that they're not good enough, and that the only unfair advantage they have over other people may no longer count. It's a movement built on the idea that some people are naturally superior, yet the loudest voices championing that belief spend all their time trying to prove it, without being able to back it up, which kind of tells you everything. Whenever I see videos of these gormless mouth breathers goose-stepping down the street, claiming they're expressing pride in their country, I'm reminded of this excellent section from Garth Ennis and the late Steve Dillon's Preacher. Jesse Custer comes across a group of white supremacists and makes the scathing observation that the greatest champions of the white race are always the worst examples of it. And he's not wrong. At the end of the day, real confidence doesn't need constant validation. Real superiority doesn't need to scream about how special it is. The irony of white supremacy is that it disproves itself. The hatred, the violence, the obsession with purity doesn't show superiority. It just signals deep insecurity. These people aren't defending their culture, they're terrified it can't stand on its own. And whenever I talk about these topics, there's always one or two voices that chime in, accusing me of betraying my own culture, but let me be clear, white supremacy is not my culture. No, white supremacy is a corruption of our culture. White culture isn't a singular monolith, it's more of a tapestry built from thousands of local traditions, stories and songs. There's no singular white race. There isn't even a singular culture in my own country, for God's sake. Someone from the southeast, where I am from, is very different to a person from the northwest. We can't even agree on what to call a bread roll. A bap, a butty, a cob, a stotty, a bun, an oggy, and that's just on one little island. And culture doesn't just exist in a vacuum, it changes over time. This is how Britain's national dish is chicken tikka masala, which was invented in Scotland, not India by the way. Real culture builds bridges, not borders. It's knowing your roots without choking on them. It's pride that doesn't need someone else beneath it. And migrants are just the latest scapegoat in an endless cycle of fear. Though often portrayed as threats, most simply seek peaceful lives and want to contribute to society. Sure, there are some bad eggs, like there are in every community, but you don't tar everyone in that community with the same brush. If a migrant commits a crime, okay, send them to prison and then deport them. But the real cause of our problems is how successive governments have cut funding to vital services, privatised essential utilities, borrowed more and more money to keep lining their own pockets, and given tax breaks to the people that really don't need them. But I digress. Ultimately, this comic is far less controversial than people made out, because the police officers are demonstrated to be completely corrupt. Batman has a long history of taking corrupt officers of the law to task, although this may be the first time he suplexed one of them to the centre of the earth. At its heart, this annual carries two messages. One is absolute. Wickedness must be stamped out. The other is humane. Redemption, however unlikely, is still worth hoping for. The character of Father Peters embodies that second ideal. He's the town's priest, a man of peace who helps the migrants, and pleads with Batman not to harm the white supremacists. Not because he agrees with them, but because he's known them since they were children. This is not who you are, he tells one man, desperate to reach whatever good remains in him. And it seems like he has some success in that case. The lad removes his mask and flees in shame, which I suppose is a win. When Bruce Wayne is sucker punched by one of the attackers, Father Peters throws himself between them, shielding a man he doesn't even know, risking his own life. He acts purely on instinct and is driven by compassion. Later, he tells a recovering Bruce that he'd marched in many peaceful protests in his time, and Bruce spots a photo of Peters linking arms with his father, Thomas Wayne. Peters tells Bruce how things weren't always this way. The men of this town were twisted by a newcomer named DJ, a hateful outsider who filled the emptiness in their hearts with bigotry. Earlier, a large company arrived in Slaughter Swamp, promising jobs and prosperity, only to leave 3 months later, abandoning the community. Those who know their DC geography will recall that Slaughter Swamp is a mystical place. Maybe something dark was unearthed, or perhaps the company got what it wanted and simply left the people to suffer. Either way, the migrants aren't to blame. They're victims just as much as the town people are. They were brought in to do a job and then the work disappeared without any warning. The real villain is the corporation that exploited the town and then vanished. The character designs drive this home. The white supremacists wear pig masks, a grotesque image that evokes the English slang term gammon for those red-faced reactionaries who rage at the mere existence of people of colour. Father Peters, meanwhile, bears the scars of survival. Every mark on his face tells a story of persistence and faith. When the supremacists descend on the migrant camp, they revel in their cruelty. They terrorise women and children while DJ screams, "White power!" and raises his arm in a Nazi salute, until Batman snaps it at the elbow. And I have to stress that the gravity of this panel is a little bit lost on digital readers of the comic. Batman breaking the Sieg Heil is a glorious double-page spread in the physical book, and it really allows us to drink in the detail. The panels that follow are savage, bodies contorted, bones shattered. The man who sucker punched Batman earlier gets 3 batarangs to the eyes and a knee to the face for holding a gun to a child's head. Probably the most stupid thing you could do in front of Batman. DJ fares worst of all. His face is pounded to a pulp, until Father Peters intervenes again, pleading for restraint. Violence, he says, won't fix this. It won't change their minds, only harden them. He admits he doesn't know the answer to fixing things, but he knows this isn't it. But this is Batman's way. After the dust settles, Batman burns their hideout to the ground. He commandeers one of the abandoned construction vehicles, presumably a remnant of corporate greed, and later refashions it into his own Batmobile. Meanwhile, Father Peters tends to the wounded, his faith in compassion completely unshaken. Whether his way will ever succeed is unclear, but it's enough to make Batman pause. He remembers his own father's words, that compassion is the measure of a man, and though Batman's compassion drives him, his rage has defined him. He acts violently because he feels for the victims, he protects the innocent, but he cannot forgive the wicked. Standing at 6'4" and about 400 pounds of muscle, Batman is impossibly strong, but beneath that granite exterior lies the same thing that drives countless men to the gym at 2 a.m. Insecurity, fear, and the gnawing sense that if they stop building, stop pushing, stop proving, they'll collapse under the weight of everything they're holding up. In that sense, bodybuilding can be a kind of therapy for some, the ritual of control in a world that makes you feel powerless. Every rep is a declaration that pain can be turned into progress, that weakness will be conquered through sheer will. But inside, he's still that weeping little boy, desperately calling out to his dad from the bat enclosure. At the end of the day, he's driven to the same feelings of inadequacy and anxiety as the white supremacists. It's just he channels his negative energy towards making the wicked regret every life choice they've ever made. The story closes with him staring down at DJ's dried blood on his hands, head bowed in shame, a man torn between mercy and justice, purity and pollution. There's a certain satisfaction in watching Nazis get their arms broken and corrupt bullies suplexed straight to hell. Stories like this scratch a very human itch, the desire to see evil punished decisively, violently, and without apology. But that's the fantasy. Batman is what we wish we could be, a force of pure consequence in a world that rarely delivers it. Father Peters, though, is what we could be. He doesn't punch fascism into submission, he obstructs it. He offers compassion to people who barely deserve it, because he knows that without compassion, there's no way back. Batman's war on crime is eternal. There will always be another DJ, another Black Mask, or a new Mr. Freeze. But Father Peters fights a tougher battle, to remind the world that hate isn't inevitable and that kindness isn't weakness. And if we're honest with ourselves, his way is the one that actually changes minds. Batman saves lives, correct. But are those white supremacists going to learn the error of their ways by getting crippled? Or is it going to make them double down on their hatred? Father Peters' way, meanwhile, saves souls, or at least he saved one soul, and maybe that's good enough. The annual also explores these themes in two smaller stories, Sanctuary by James Warren and Let's Learn About Bats by Meredith McLaren. The first story demonstrates more of Batman's brutal justice from the perspective of a group of party animals. The party animals sought refuge in a converted church, now a mansion owned by the father of one of their members. They weren't expecting the dad to be home, so they take him hostage, and Batman picks them off one by one. It's worth noting that he leaves the son alone, as he seems to be doubting some of his life choices, but shows the other party animals no mercy, scolding them with burning oil and cracking their skulls open. When the largest party animal, who is high on drugs, blows himself up with a grenade, Batman shields the father and the son from the explosion and leaves them to reconcile. Meanwhile, in Let's Learn About Bats, we're shown a montage of how the people of Gotham react to Batman's antics on social media. These are accompanied by bat facts, as seen in the Gotham Zoo back in Absolute Batman 1. It shows that Batman is making a difference, that people are acting differently because of his actions, and he's building a following. Across these stories, the same argument plays out in three voices: the violent fantasy we crave, the moral cost it exacts, and the patient communal work that might actually change minds. Batman enacts the fantasy, Father Peters embodies the ideal we can reach, and Gotham's people, the hostages, the migrants, or the social media followers, show how actions ripple outwards, shaping lives and conscience. This Absolute Batman annual is definitely full of some pretty graphic violence, with contorted faces, broken bones and horrific burns. It shows genuinely evil people getting their comeuppance. But at the same time, it's a meditation on justice, compassion and the choices we make when confronted with evil. Batman was born from violence, so it shouldn't be too surprising that that's the language he's fluent in. But what about the rest of us? We can revel in the fantasy of Batman's unrelenting violence, sure, but at the same time we should also admire Father Peter's humanity and delight in seeing Gotham respond in kind. Ultimately, the annual reminds us that heroism is not merely the strength to punish, but the courage to act rightly, even when there are no easy victories. Violence can silence evil, but compassion will always outlast it. And maybe that's the message buried beneath the suplexes and the shattered bones. That the hardest, most heroic act isn't breaking the world's monsters, it's refusing to become one yourself. Absolute Batman Annual 1 is available now from all good comic shops. I'm not sharing any affiliate link stuff this time, frankly hardly anyone clicks on them, and this video has already gone on long enough. For those that are keeping track of my overwhelming comic collection, I didn't order anything too over the top this week. But note that the Deadpool Batman crossover comes out this month with about 18 million variant covers, and wouldn't you know it, I've pre-ordered them all. Oh, I know I'm part of the problem. Next time. I'll be doing 3 videos next week. Up first, we have Batman number 3, in which Vandal Savage makes his move against Batman. Shortly afterwards, I'll be talking about Absolute Superman 13, where the battle for Kansas kicks off, with Superman trying to hold back the might of the Lazarus Corp. And finally, I'll cover Absolute Green Lantern 8, which promises to reveal the deepest secrets of the new Green Lantern, Joe Mullen. Hope to see you then.